I live in America, Louis. That's hard enough. I don't have to love it. You do that.
But we neither shield nor defend them. We want them exposed.
Lovers come and lovers go. Lovers live and die fortissimo. This is where we take a stand.
And I'm going to stay here and have a part of it just like you. And no fascist-minded people will drive me from it.
And we are not going away. We won't die secret deaths anymore.
I'm here because you are promoting the communist cause.
I am here because I'm opposing the neo-fascist cause, which I see arising in these committees.
Discrimination in America is not new. I'd argue it's as American as apple pie. Always there, peeking out from behind a tree, or sitting openly on a table. In terms of LGBT persecution, we could go back to the first wave of Puritans and their persecution of queer indigenous people, but that might complicate this too much. I think Tony Kushner has provided us with a good starting point, the Red Scare. Right after World War II, the United States had a new fear: communists. Communist movements were gaining popularity in Europe as a way to distance themselves from their fascistic predecessors. However, America was lumped into that imperialistic category. Anti-American pamphlets were being spread in various European countries, and translations were then published back in the States. They were being presented here to illustrate the fantastic falsehoods about America, which are being disseminated daily by the communist propaganda machines. These American newspapers wanted to beat sympathizers to the punches and spread concern about communists nationwide. Still, the government began to fear that communists may have already infiltrated the country. They established the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, and began investigating creatives within Hollywood in the late 40s. By the early 50s, their investigations were focused on government workers. You've probably heard about the Red Scare in school, so I'll avoid the finer details of it. You may not have, however, heard of the Lavender Scare, which ran parallel. At this point in time, homosexuality was criminalized in the United States. Being outed meant you could lose everything. Knowing this, the government worried that communist entities could blackmail homosexual employees within the American State Department. Of course, it was the persecution of homosexuals in American society that paved the way for the possibility of blackmail, but I digress. The government's solution to this perceived threat was to fire and often out suspected homosexuals with federal jobs. Queer people, who were doing their best to hide from a society that reviled them, had their lives destroyed. And, of course, at the scene of the crime of both the Red and Lavender Scares was Roy Cohn.
I think if these people are made to understand that, like any other criminals, when they violate our laws, they will be punished, that will have a strong deterrent effect. And I think that the death sentence imposed by Judge Irving R. Kaufman in the Adams spy trial had a very strong deterrent effect. I think it's been a very good year on the anti-communist front in this country.
Roy Cohn, the man infamous for ensuring Ethel Rosenberg got the death penalty. A fictionalized version of the man who would become Donald Trump's mentor, is a major player in Angels in America, but we will talk more about him later. Just remember, for now, that he was on the HUAC board and was one of the most zealous. After the Lavender Scare, we entered the 60s. The decade was, for the most part, marked by fear left over from the nation's focus on the community. So much visibility without any understanding led to increased attacks. Due to the work of homophile groups, like the Mattachine Society, employment protections for homosexuals arose. This group was focused solely on assimilation and excluded members of the community, but they still got something done. But every time there is any sort of gain, it all comes crashing down.
If we were going to go on a crusade across the nation and try to do away with the homosexuals, then we certainly would have done it on June the 8th after one of the most overwhelming victories in the country. But we didn't. We tried to avoid it.
The 70s brought forth a new mainstream wave of anti-LGBT sentiment, this time focused on homosexuals as teachers. Parents were worried they might indoctrinate their kids. The most prominent figure is Anita Bryant, founder of the Save Our Children Coalition, whose sole goal was to strip queer people of their rights. Let us be very clear. And she succeeded. She was able to get an ordinance in Miami-Dade County, Florida, reversed. That ordinance prohibited discrimination in employment on the basis of sexuality. Seriously, Anita? Which brings us into the 80s, the time in which Angels in America is set. Here, the panic was now highly specific. AIDS. The rhetoric surrounding the disease is some of the most vile homophobia you will hear. And it was very mainstream. Sanctioned, even.
Is the president concerned about this subject, Larry? That
I haven't
seems
heard
to
him
have
express
evoked so much jocular reaction here.
I haven't heard
It
him
isn't only the
express.
jocks, Lester.
Has he sworn off water faucets?
No, but I mean, is he going to do anything, Larry?
Lester, I have not heard him express anything. I'm sorry.
He has no expressed no opinion about this epidemic.
No, but I must confess I haven't asked him about it.
That man, who is making light of the deaths of thousands of people, was White House Press Secretary Larry Speakes. When cruelty such as that is perpetuated by the government, it gives society at large the go-ahead for much worse.
If you want to stop, they'd shoot the queers, says the governor of Texas on the radio. And his press secretary later claims that the governor was only joking, didn't know the microphone was turned on. Besides, he didn't think it hurt his chance for re-elections anyways.
Some of the more conservative rhetoric was that AIDS was killing the right people, which is utterly deplorable. Others simply did not care. More still, feared what they did not understand, and perpetuated homophobic ideals that way. The point is, the socio-political tool of sowing fear and panic around homosexuality has been present throughout American history. If you follow the news at all, you will know that it is still here today. The form may change, and advances might be made, but homophobia and transphobia are still very present. I often say, every few years, America finds a new reason to hate queer people. We cannot brush that under the rug. We cannot just say to ourselves, oh, we have it better than we used to. We have legal protections now. Just because things are better does not mean things are good. If we allow ourselves to stagnate, we will lose that which we have fought so hard to win. America is afraid to progress, and so we don't. Like the angel that visits Pryor, the American monolith is resistant to change. When something like queer people who do not fit into the puritanical vision of America, challenges the status quo, society at large tries to stamp it out. Remember the cycle. Remember the people who lost their jobs, the people who were beaten, the people who were killed. Now, after that heavy history lesson, you might be wondering what Angels in America has to do with all of that. Tony Kushner's seminal work highlights the cyclical nature of mainstream American culture. It is present in the staging as much as it is in the content. If we take a look at a production of Angels, we will see that the boundaries within scenes are blurred.
I think you should go.
Where?
Washington, doesn't matter.
What are you talking about?
Without me. Without me. Joe, isn't that what you want to hear?
Yes.
You can love someone and fail them. You can love someone and not be able to.
You can, theoretically, yes. A person can. Maybe an editorial you can love, Lewis, but not you. Specifically you. I don't know. I think you are excluded from that general category.
You were going to save me, but the whole time you were spinning a lie. I just don't understand that.
A person could theoretically love, and maybe many do, but we both know now you can't.
I do.
You can't even say it.
I love you, Pryor.
I repeat, who cares?
This is so scary. I want this to stop, to go back.
We have reached a verdict, Your Honor. This man's heart is deficient. He loves, but his love is worth nothing.
Kushner has written his play in a way that allows characters that are essentially in different scenes to continue conversations started by others. The words flow into each other and make something more impactful than either of those conversations would be on their own. We can also see this in another stage production from the same time, falsettos.
Late for dinner, late again, 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 late.
This musical, set between the years of 1979 and 1981, focuses on what it means to be queer within a family setting. It also deals heavily with the AIDS crisis in its second act. The composer and lyricist, William Finn, utilized this overlapping of lyrics to accentuate the way each of the characters' lives intersect with each other. Angels in America, by contrast, features overlapping to draw temporal similarities. In the scene shown at the start of this section, Harper and Joe and Pryor and Lewis are engaging in very similar conversations, which are shown at the same time. We do not know if these talks are truly occurring at the exact same instant, but it doesn't matter. What matters is the idea that these experiences are not isolated. Like how queer people in the 50s and queer people in the 80s experience the same currents of discrimination, we can see the two couples experience the fear and pain of loneliness. Like every queer person experiencing discrimination today, and those who did in the past, the characters are bound together through space and time.
The world has gotten so terribly, terribly old.
This leads us nicely into the fact that plays are not exceedingly temporal works. They're not bound to a specific instant. They're not just words on a page or characters stuck within a screen. Plays are transient and shifting. The actors and theaters change, but the plot remains the same. Time is always moving forward, yet plays can draw us right into whatever time period they take place in. The beats of the story repeat with each production, and the beats of history repeat with heavy footfalls. No matter when a play is being staged, the audience will be drawn right into the era portrayed. They have a foot in both the past and the present. It is Kushner's way to say, witness. What was then is now, and what is now was then. He suggests that what has happened before is happening again, like I illustrated in part 1 of this video. The undercurrents of sociopolitics are virtually the same now as they were then, just with a slightly different facade. Another way Kushner emphasizes repetition in history is through the breaking of the fourth wall. Each act begins with a lone man speaking directly to the audience. However, the audience no longer consists of simple theatergoers. Now, the audience assumes the role of unseen characters in the play. Those attending Lewis's grandmother's funeral and those attending the speech of the world's oldest living Bolshevik. The people in the seats, and those watching or reading from the comfort of their homes, occupy dual roles within the current time and within the time frame of the play. When the rabbi says,
"But every day of your lives, the miles that the voyage between that place and this one you cross every day, you understand me? In you that journey is."
He's not just talking about heritage. He's telling the audience directly that our paths now will cross with the paths from the past. Falsettos again displays this as well. When Marvin says,
"So it's 1979, and we don't go by the book,"
he's informing the audience of the time within which the musical is set. But it is also an affirmative statement. It is. Right here, right now, in this theater, it is 1979. You are experiencing the past and the present at the same time. The past has not gone away, it is still here with us today. Then there is Pryor Walter, whose very name is indicative of the time relations in the play. He is here in the present, but also in the past. He is prior to now and now. The visitations of the prior Pryors, his ancestors and namesakes, also point to vestiges of the past in the present. It is the old alongside the new. They are not wholly distinct anymore. Now, unfortunately, we have to talk about Roy Cohn. In the play, his character is one who is stuck in the past. He is constantly trying to cling to his glory days when he had an inordinate amount of political sway. He is haunted by Ethel Rosenberg, who, in his own words,
"I pleaded till I wept to put her in the chair. Me! I did that!"
He considered her death to be his greatest achievement. And now, as his death draws near, she will not leave him alone. The pain he caused has not stayed in 1953. It is also no coincidence that his newest protege in the play is named Joe. This harkens back to Joseph McCarthy, who had Roy Cohn as his right-hand man during the Red Scare. He is too stuck in the past. He does not realize that things have shifted over time. His refusal to move on prevents him from having a happy ending. That leads us to the main question. What do we do in the face of despair? Because if we ignore the past, we are doomed to repeat it, but if we dwell in it, we can destroy ourselves. At the beginning of Perestroika is a monologue by a character only seen there, the world's oldest living Bolshevik. He says,
"The great question before us is, will the past release us? The great question before us is, can we change in time? And we all desire that change will come."
I think the answer is yes to each of his questions. The past will release us, because if we ignore it, it won't go away. The only way forward is to recognize the patterns and work to make sure they do not continue to repeat. And I think we can change. I think we already have. There is this notion of painful progress within the play.
But still bless me anyway. I want more life. I can't help myself, I do. I've lived through such terrible times, and there are people who live through much, much worse, but you see them living anyway.
The angels have experienced hardship and want the world to stagnate. Pryor knows that the world has been awful and is awful in the present, but through it all, he still wants to live, has to live, because he believes in humanity and believes that we will be able to make things better. It is through the struggle that we will be able to do so. Kushner doesn't just want us to move on and forget.
Why don't you feel alright for the rest of your life?
He wouldn't have included all his historical allusions if that's what he wanted. Angels in America is an ultimately hopeful work. Kushner hoped that catastrophe would break the pattern. Unfortunately, it did not. He had no way of knowing exactly what was waiting in the decades to come. Hope is the only thing that has kept us alive through everything the world has thrown at us. We need to hope for a better future. We need to fight for it. As in the Talmudic tradition, you are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. A better future is possible, but only if we put in the work. It is 2025, and things seem pretty bleak. But we will make it through this. Not by being complacent, but by fighting. Queer anger, queer joy, queer humor, queer power. Stay strong. We cannot give in to despair.
Bye now. You are fabulous, each and every one. And I bless you. More life. The great work begins.